Come up with the idea.
College.
And all the neighbors would come.
Choreographer says, I need someone to walk through this. I have an idea.
Guitar, Eddie Everett.
Stuffed animals.
He would laugh when I would do Shakespeare or something.
Kind of got to that place.
We finished the scene.
Hi, I'm Ricki Lake. I might look familiar to you. You probably know me as a talk show host and an actor and also a documentary filmmaker. But I am, you should know something about me. I grew up in New York City, or just outside of New York City, and I have a sister named Jennifer, and I now live in Los Angeles with my two sons, Milo, who's 12, and Owen, who's 8. And I've made, I think, 20-something movies at this point, bunch of TV stuff. Wrote a book last year called Your Best Birth. Well, I remember specifically when I discovered what I wanted to be when I grew up, and that was when I saw Annie on Broadway. I was probably 6 or 7 years old. I saw it with my grandmother. I can remember exactly where I was sitting in the theater, and I remember crying when it was over because I didn't want it to end. And I knew that I wanted to be a singer and a performer and have all eyes on me. And, you know, I wasn't the typical, you know, I wanted to audition for Annie, and I started singing and dancing, and, you know, but I wasn't, as my mother said, the typical starving orphan type, you know, and I was kind of just regular and not particularly special. You know, I had a big personality, but I wasn't particularly talented back then, you know. And so my grandmother was the one who instilled in me that I could do anything. My grandmother, Sylvia, who's the one who brought me to the ballet and to the opera and Broadway shows, musicals, she's the one who told me I could do it, and I was the best, and I was the most talented, and, you know, I was going to be a big star. And she unfortunately died when I was 9 years old, and so, I mean, I still to this day believe that she is somehow present, or at least, you know, her sort of belief in me has stayed with me all these years. Well, I started taking singing lessons at the age of 9. I mean, I wanted to be a singer, and so, and I still sing, but I don't do it very often. I don't do it publicly very often. But, you know, I wanted to be a Broadway star. And so I, you know, took lessons for 10 years, and I took dance and, you know, acting. And I started performing off Broadway when I was 13, 14 years old. I was singing in cabarets off Broadway in New York. And so that was every weekend with this troupe of really talented kids. Some of them went on to be pretty successful. Deborah Gibson was a girl that I used to sing with in an ice cream shop every weekend, and you know, one guy, Victor Cook, he won Star Search. That was really where I got my sort of not chops, but like performing in front of an audience and making eye contact and winning over an audience, and you know, it was really a lot of fun. I mean, I think my parents have been incredibly supportive, and just the fact that my mom drove me to singing lessons every Saturday, you know, half hour away, and, you know, they certainly showed up at all my shows, but I don't think they believed in me as much as she did, you know. I was absolutely, you know, her number one. I mean, you know, and so it's great when you're in that really that early developing years to have that belief in yourself, to get that from such a role model. I think it was such a gift. But no, I don't think you know, I was really awkward. I was really chubby. Some would say, you know, obese, and I had braces, and I was not, you know, particularly attractive, or, you know, I didn't stand out. I'm one of these people, I don't really ever think things through. I jump in feet first. So it's never like a conscious, people say to me, how did you get that talk show? You know, it was never a conscious thing on my part. It's just something that came along, and I jump in without thinking about it. You know, I do that with my personal relationships too. I sort of don't get cold feet. I just do it. If I feel it, I jump in. So as far as, I was performing as a teenager. I went to high school. I wasn't really, I was going to go to college to appease my parents, and because I had no other choice. And but I really didn't want to go. I didn't want to, I didn't want to do sort of academics. I wanted to focus more on performing. Didn't know how I was going to do that. And so Hairspray, which was, a script. I didn't even read the script at first. It came through people I knew that it was an audition, a local audition in New York City for a fat girl who could dance. I'm in. Where do I sign? It was like that kind of, because I'd done pilots before. I'd done jobs that didn't pan out to anything but the pilot. And so I was like, okay.
Working in construction. Well, a lot of that story is based on my life.
So most of you, I'm sure, recognize me from my talk show, which many of you probably think that's my big break, but it actually wasn't. That was the job that made me some money. But my big break was the John Waters movie Hairspray. Well, I'm fat and I can dance, and and so I just went sort of on a whim, not knowing who John Waters was, never heard of Divine, had no idea what I was getting into, and so I drove in the middle of the night. It was during finals week of my first year of college, and I got a speeding ticket on the way. I remember, and I met John Waters in the audition, and it was one of those, hi, nice. I didn't know who he was. I had no preconceived idea of that this was even the starring role in a movie. I just knew it was a movie. It would get me off my mother off my back for college, for the next semester. I could get, out of it. And then, it became this summer job that was just so much fun and so much work. But even making the film, I never quite thought it through that this is going to change my life and this is going to make me a star. And I just never thought of it that way. It was almost like summer camp. And I remember John Waters pulling me aside right before the film came out. We'd already shot it, and I don't even know if I'd seen the final cut at that time. And he said, look, I just want to, he was amazing, because he sat me down. I still, to this day, I'm so grateful to him for giving me the advice he gave me, unsolicited advice. He said, I want you to, know that your life is going to change. And I want you to always stay humble, always be true to yourself. If you're going to read the good publicity, you're going to have to read and believe the bad publicity, so keep it all in perspective. And I'm telling you, it's almost verbatim, I think, what I'm saying to you is how he said it to me. It was like, by, this and this and this and this. And I'm telling you, that has been incredibly important for me in my development and dealing with this very strange business that we're all in. It really can get crazy, and so I think that has really helped me to keep it in perspective. When I first saw the film, I remember it was at the Waverly Theater in downtown in Manhattan, and sitting there, and Michael St. Gerard, who was my co-star in Hairspray, he played Link Larkin, and he was a very good friend of mine, and we were holding hands. We sat together. And that was when the first time it dawned on me, wow, this whole movie's about my character. It was kind of like, wow, I really was naive, and I love that about myself, that I don't think too much about things, but to the extreme. I just was so clueless. And then it was absolutely life-changing, and not just becoming like a name. It gave me a purpose. It gave me this confidence, and I think for looking back on it now with all the different chapters of Hairspray, the musical, and the second film that came out. I think it's a great message, and I really didn't think about it much. The girl, the underdog that overcomes and faces adversity and wins and gets the guy and loves herself. I think it's just such a great message, and I love that character, and I love that I was able to play her and convincingly, and I really was that character. I think I had this confidence that, again, was probably instilled from such an early age with my grandmother, that I really did think I was the best dancer, And I clearly wasn't. I mean, I really, really wasn't. And I had twice as much weight as everybody else to move around. But, you know, I did believe that I deserved the guy. I got a phone call from a producer that I didn't know his name, Garth Sear. Never heard of him. He started the Fox network and worked all these places. He called me at home. He got my home number through a friend and said, will you come in? We're thinking of doing this talk show. And I love Oprah Winfrey. All right. I got nothing to do today. And I drove, and I knew it had to be, like, legit because I was driving onto the Fox lot. You know, I was like, all right, I'm having to get, like, the parking pass from the guard. And I'm like, okay, this has to be something real. They picked me. And I was like, okay, I'll do it for $5,000. Like, it was one of those, like, I need the money to pay my rent for 6 months. I'm in. Where do I sign? It was like that kind of, you know, because I'd done pilots before. I'd done jobs that didn't pan out to anything but the pilot. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to pretend to be Oprah. I'm going to just, you know, ask questions. I'm curious. I always would love to, like, gossip with people and ask them personal things and get them to answer. So ratings, like, you'd see it on, we'd look, and again, it's like I blame it on being just completely green or just living in the moment at that time, because I really didn't know what I was doing.
Just getting working in construction. My mom and dad died, but I like going up.
Some of the difficult times, I'd say my rock bottom was when I was about 21 years old. I had just finished a show called China Beach, and it was an acting job that didn't continue when I thought it would, and I couldn't afford to pay my mortgage, and I had to move. I was actually homeless for a little while. I didn't live in my car, but I had to scramble to find a place to live. Well, I had made a bunch of feature films at that point. So I was, okay, so I made Hairspray when I was 18. So by the time I was 21 or 22, I had done China Beach, which was a show that ran for 4 seasons, and I only did 1 season. That was the sort of my low point. That was my hitting bottom. I was 260 pounds. I was in an abusive relationship. I didn't have any money. You know, there was a housing market crash where I had to basically, my house was foreclosed. I had no money. Like, I couldn't get arrested. And so it was really confusing for me, because here I was this big girl, and I was doing all these amazing acting jobs. I was working with Johnny Depp, and I was working, you know, I was doing all these great projects, and it dried up, like, almost instantly. It was like people got sick of me, or, oh, yeah, the funny fat girl, oh, you know, my time had sort of come and gone. And so I didn't know, you know, I didn't finish college. I suddenly was $300,000 in debt. I was on my own. What am I going to do to sort of shake things up and reinvent myself? And so I was really, in a way, it was like the best thing that ever happened to me, because I was able to really kind of motivate myself. I lost 130 pounds, and so that all kind of preempted was the start to my talk show, in a way. I mean, it wasn't conscious. Again, it was like the way things happened. But I changed my physicality. I sort of knew I'm smart. I'm like smart, where I know that this business is about having a gimmick. It's like what sets you apart from everybody else, And obviously what I was doing wasn't working anymore, so I needed to change it up and get people to notice me again. Well, they would notice if I looked physically different. If I went away for about 6 or 9 months and suddenly came back and looked dramatically different, that will get attention. And so that was what I did. And so, I mean, I don't know. I don't have the answers. Like, people say, how did you lose weight? It's like, I went on a diet. I shut my mouth. I moved my body, But I think, I feel like I'm the example that if I can do this, anybody can do this, because I really am not that special. I come from a really normal, middle class, I think there is some luck involved. And I think I've worked hard, and I'm really committed when I stick to something. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I have great willpower, clearly I gave birth to my son in my bathtub without anybody's help. But I feel like, this tenacity that I have, I think it's just important to kind of believe in yourself. And again, if I can do this, if I can become famous for being fat, hey, anybody can. So it was 1992, and went to New York, and we did mock-ups with we had fake people sitting in chairs, and I was using a hairbrush basically for a microphone, and it was just playing. And I was really a fan of Oprah's and Sally Jesse and Phil Donahue. Those were the shows that were on, and I just kind of did what I thought they would do, and it just clicked. I mean, again, it's I wasn't trained. I did do some sort of I'm trying to think of what skills I would learn, because honestly, it's something that I think I was just born to do, and I think I'm better at that than I am at acting and playing a character. I'm better at kind of being spontaneous, being myself, and talking to real people and being curious, and being sharp and funny. That comes really naturally to me, much more so than having to pretend to be somebody else. We went on the air, and it was like a phenomenon. It was just the ratings, you'd see it we'd look, and again, it's I blame it on being just completely green, or just living in the moment at that time, because I really didn't know what I was doing. And so we'd look at the ratings, and it was just oh my God. It was going up and up and up, and we were, beating Oprah some days, and we were getting that key demo, because we were the first show, which, I credit Garth Ancier for really having a vision to do this younger talk show. This younger audience was not being served in that area. Released. So that's we've gone sort of deeper with the birthing stuff, with VBACs, vaginal birth after cesarean, and doulas, and we went and saw Ina May, who's my personal hero, on the farm, where the midwives are, so we're that's going to be great.
Working in construction. My mom and dad growing up.
Where I am in my life right now, I really consider myself to be an advocate, probably more than anything these days. I continue to speak around the world about choices when it comes to childbirth and midwives and the midwifery model of care. And I've launched with my partner, Abby Epstein, a social networking site called mybestbirth.com, which has been a hub for, we have 8,000 people now getting information about pregnancies and choices and midwives and doulas and VBACs and all kinds of information, and that's been incredible. Well, now, of course, now that I'm 41 and I look back and it's I was a kid then, I was, yes. And what happened in my life personally, I met the guy I married. I fell madly in love with him a month after I went on the air with my show. I had 2 children during that time. I lived through September 11th firsthand. I, moved to Los Angeles and divorced my baby's dad. And went on this other journey of, making documentaries about really important topics. Well, I had this profound personal experience of having my babies in 2 different environments, and so that was and it was really what I felt like I'd learned through the process of having my 2 children, and what I felt like a lot of people in my world didn't have access to that information. And so it was through my kind of due diligence and reading up on everything. I mean, here I was, I hated college, I hated studying, I hated school. But yet this was an area where I was fascinated and I couldn't get enough information. And so I felt you get to a point, and maybe it was me having children, maybe it was me doing the show for so many years, I kind of felt what is my purpose? I'm doing all these shows on hoochies and this one and that one. And, yeah, it's fun and it's entertaining, and we did a lot of stuff with drugs and teenage mothers and all kinds of stuff that was really important. But it was what do I stand for? What do I believe in? Where can I make a difference? And so, obviously AIDS and cancer, and I did the breast cancer walk and all this. But it's okay, this midwives and choices when it comes to childbirth and how important that is to, I think, everyone. They maybe don't know it, but I think it's incredibly important when you get to bond and have an empowering, transformative birth experience, you know, when you become a mother. I mean, I think it's an opportunity that's amazing. I felt like this was an area that needed my voice and needed someone like me, because they didn't have anybody. And that's when it clicked. I mean, I didn't know I was going to end up making a documentary that was going to piss the AMA off and really have a life beyond, you know, a normal, you know, independent little film. But I wanted to do something where I felt like I was going to be saying something important and have people listen. My agenda is to empower the consumer, to help them to understand that they have choices, and that these choices are really important for them to make when they're informed, when they have the correct information. And so that was really my purpose. You know, it's like I felt like if I can help a woman have a positive birth experience, to not hear another like horror story or you know, whatever. I mean, you know, I think you can have a positive birth experience anywhere. You know, it's certainly in a hospital. Most people deliver in hospitals, but I think, you know, it's about having that information. And so I really wanted to get to the bottom of it. Well, I mean, the cool thing is that I don't really know. Like, I have some stuff going on, and a follow-up documentary that Abby Epstein and I have made is about to be released. So that's you know, we've gone sort of deeper with the birthing stuff, with VBACs, vaginal birth after cesarean, and doulas, and you know, we went and saw Ina May, who's my personal hero, on the farm where she, you know, the midwives are, you know. So we're that's going to be great, and certainly I continue to be an advocate for choice and for midwives and just, you know, women and babies. But I'm also involved with this project to take on childhood obesity. I mean, I never thought that I'd be where I am now. I never, in my wildest dreams, thought that I'd, you know, sort of resurrect myself in so many different ways. I've kind of reinvented myself. And I really love that about my career, that I've been in this business for 22 years, or at least making a living in this business. I've been in the business longer, but to have gone in all these different avenues, to do all these like sort of indie, you know, quirky films like John Waters films, and then steering into more mainstream, doing television, being fat, being skinny, and then, you know, doing the advocacy stuff that I've been doing. So, and the talk show. I almost forgot about that. I mean, I feel like I've had 9 lives in this business, and I feel like the best is still yet to come for me. You know, I'm still achieving so much more.